Greetings, humans. I, the Great Chemicus, will enlighten you with my very first video regarding the masterpiece that is known as Kirby and the Forgotten Land. With ingenious level design, great music, fun copy abilities, and of course, the topic of this video, the great bosses. I will be ranking all 8 bosses, which include the boss of each world, Meta Knight, and I will be combining the 3 phases of the final boss into one ranking. And finally, these are all my opinions, so if your favorite boss is at the bottom, please don't harass me. Without further ado, let's begin. Yeah! Oh, and one more thing. Massive spoiler warning since this game is pretty recent. Okay, let's go for real. Now, the reason Flowerline is at the bottom of this list is because she feels like she reuses the same 2 attacks, which are painfully easy to avoid. And, I mean, she gets one more attack, but it feels cheap. And another massive flaw, which does not only go to her, but most of the other bosses, is the weird proportions in their design. For example, Flowerline has like these meaty-looking thighs, but a skinny torso and a bigger breast. It feels really off. Not to mention, she feels like the most forgettable boss in Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I mean, she just comes later as some sort of story relevance at the end of the game. Sorry for spoilers. But, I'm sorry, she's the worst. But the bosses after her are significantly better, so I hope you enjoy the rest. Now, Armando, despite being the first boss, is significantly better than Flowerline for a few reasons. One, it's the first boss, so I can't cut it too much slack for being too easy. But not to mention it feels far more memorable, with a lot more fun attacks. Not to mention the fact that he uses the range of where Kirby is to his advantage. For example, when he's further away, he uses his rock attack, where he throws rocks at you. And when you're underneath him, he uses his foot attack to stomp you. It's just he uses his range and strategically plans things out. But it's still the first boss, so I can't give too much praise. Not to mention it follows the same problem as Flowerline with the weird proportions, with the tiny looking legs just looking really weird. Not to mention the fact that she looks like an emo Donkey Kong of all things. Why? I don't know. Okay, next one. I really don't have much to say about Tropical Woods, outside of him thankfully not being the first boss for the 15th time, and his tropical theme makes him stick out more. And he's finding a unique way where he never moves outside of the upper center of the arena. Not to mention, he is not too easy, because that gate attack, despite being like the most annoying thing in the world, can easily catch you off guard. But the thing is, just spam fire on him and he'll go down. Just spam fire. I'm sorry guys, I really didn't have that much to say. Sorry if the segment felt short. Okay, next one. Aw man, this one's gonna be really hard for me. I really did not want to put Forgo Dedede this low, but he's way too easy for this late in the game. Now, I'm not saying the fight is bad, just a little underwhelmingly easy. Because the first fight felt significantly better, but we'll get to that later. But let's get the positives out of the way now that we have the main negative. First off, I do like his attacks. Not as good as the first fight, but still pretty good. Especially where he just runs around like a freaking dog. It's really comedic and once again adds character to my favorite Kirby character. I love you, Dedede, but I really did not want to put you this low. I am sorry. Although that cutscene after the fight is phenomenal and proves that Dedede cares about his people, but this does indicate that he was possessed, which is a little underwhelming because when I first saw the trailers with him in the game and the cool design and everything, I genuinely thought he was going to be the final boss, just like he was, you know, back in like the first Kirby game ever. Any other time he's just not the final boss, and most of the time he's possessed, which is disappointing. But yeah, did not want to put you this low, but I'm sorry, man, you're too easy. Now, silly Dillo, I don't have much to say for him either, but honestly, he's just fun. Like, I mean, really fun in terms of dodging him. And again, he does somewhat lack of attacks, but he makes up for that by, unlike Flowerline, the attacks feel hard and fun. Like, when you dodge him rolling around, it just feels so fun. Not to mention his attacks are pretty creative, where he gets this junk woman, dances around, and throws multiple of them at you. It feels like the closest thing you're gonna get to a bullet hell. Not to mention his design just looks so derpy and I love it. Granted, I might not like him too much because, again, he lacks in attacks, but he makes up for that by having them being fun and creative. So, good job for making it on the upper half of this ranking, silly Dillo. Oh my god, Meta Knight is so fun. Despite being optional, I went for him anyway because I just wanted to fight him. Now granted, I was disappointed to see that he is optional and not a main boss, which is admittedly disappointing. But again, he makes up for that by just being fun. First off, he has a multitude of attacks that barely give you a break. One minute he's just flying around, next up he's got like shadow things falling behind him, then he's just charging at you, then he's got lightning, then he's got raining boulders. He's just so fun, and just, he's so creative, his music's pretty good, it is really great, and I'll admit it's a little annoying how he forces you to grab the sword for the billionth time. We don't want it, Meta Knight, please. Oh, I'm sorry, but again, Meta Knight, super fun. Again, the only downside is that he's optional, which disappoints me. Yeah. You're all surprised the final boss isn't number 1. Now, don't get me wrong. It is a great final boss. Well, the third phase at least. Yeah, if you're the final boss and you have noticeable flaws that can reoccur every time, you're not gonna be number 1. Let's get the main 2 problems out of the way. The first 2 phases, they suck. suck. Probably worse than most of the other bosses on this list. First up, we got Liongar, I think is his name. Let me just get this out of the way. He is probably the most forgettable Kirby villain ever. Like, ever. Dare I say, Highness from the worst Kirby game, Kirby Star Allies, was far more memorable. Because he just looked like a purple Squidward. Here he just looks like a generic lion. That is not cool. That's dumb. Not to mention he reuses so many attacks per phase. One minute he's got 3. The next, he's got 3 slightly different ones, but ditches the other 3. And sometimes he feels unfair for like, when he's charging at you, biting you, and you're running away, and you're ahead of him, and then he gets tired, and you try to attack him, like, it feels so unfair. Like, good luck trying not to die on this fight. Like, you'll almost die, but it doesn't feel satisfying. It feels cheap. And the other thing is, the second phase is so easy. It's stupid. Like, again, it looks kind of cool, but it's easy. He uses, like, 2 attacks, which is so dumb. But then it makes up for that with the phenomenal third phase. My god, the third phase. First off, the design does not suck balls. Second of all, the countless amount of attacks, and I hate to say it, but I died. Yeah, I died in a Kirby game. I kinda suck. But that's not the point. You're probably going to die too, because this boss will not give you a break. It is long, and you are never given a break, which is just motivational, and it puts all of your dodging skills and perfect moments to attack to the test. And he heals himself, or herself, or itself. It heals itself. Like, that is phenomenal. And I'm surprised I had a lot more to talk about this than most of the other bosses, but that's mainly because he has 3 phases, but he's not number 1 because the first 2 phases suck. Oh, and let me get this out of the way. Death by truck. A bit underwhelming, but, you know, kind of hysterical. Death by a freaking truck. Yep, my favorite boss. And before you say, no, it's not just because Dedede's my favorite character, it's because he's the 4th boss. He is before Silly Dillo and Forgo Dedede. And I almost died. I almost got my butt kicked. Even when I rethought him, I almost got destroyed. You know, let's get this out of the way. The intro for this fight feels so iconic already. Like, this game is so new, but it feels so memorable. Second of all, his design is so cool. They didn't just reuse his facial model for back in Star Allies. Like, they gave him a new design, and it just looks cool. And finally, the attacks. First off, he sends 2 minions at you, thinking that Kirby's a pushover, but no. And then he decides to take you on himself with a barrage of attacks and Roar of the Dedede. Roar of Dedede. My god, just listen. Yep, it is that freaking catchy. The best Dedede theme ever. And I love the Dedede theme. And then he does stuff there. After you get his health down halfway, he gets a freaking giant pillar thing and then just starts barraging you with multiple attacks to dodge. And once again, he decided to take notes from King K. Rool and fake his death while the results are playing. He sneaks up behind you and captures your friend and flies off like he's Dracula, but instead of bats, it's birds. And he's my favorite boss. It's a phenomenal fight. I love it every time I fight it again. And there we go. That is my ranking for every single Kirby and the Forgotten Land boss. I'm sorry if this video fell short, but there's only 8. I'm not going to count any filler bosses. But if there are any certain bosses I left out, for example, secret bosses, which I don't count because they're just the same fight, what would you count? Let me know. See you next time. Yeah! Please subscribe.